We all remember the rush, the explosion, the one-liners, the heroes who defy gravity and death. Action movies don't ask for much. Just give us chaos, courage, and someone to root for. But what if we told you that some of those characters you were meant to follow simply vanished? Not metaphorically, literally. These are not background extras or minor faces lost in editing. These were characters with scripted lines, shot scenes, story arcs, sometimes even featured in the trailer, posters, or press kits. They were supposed to play a role in the story. They were supposed to matter. And then, without a word, without a funeral, they disappeared from the final cut as if they never existed. No official announcement. No fanfare. Just silence. Sometimes it was due to rushed edits, test screenings gone wrong, or behind-the-scenes conflicts. But in many cases, there was no explanation at all. And what's left behind is a ghost of a character, a subplot, a version of the film that never made it to light. These aren't just editing choices. These are narrative fractures, gaps that leave a strange chill, especially once you realize what you were meant to see, but didn't. So tonight, we're pulling back the curtain, digging through deleted scenes, buried trailers, and whispers from sets long forgotten. 15 times the camera rolled, but the final reel erased someone who once stood at the heart of the action. They were filmed, they were real, and then they were gone. Let's dive into 15 action films where key characters vanished without a trace. Fact 1. Firepower. 1993. The hacker had a name, a backstory, a motive. And according to early versions of the script, he was crucial, a linchpin in unlocking the facility's AI defense system in Firepower, a 1993 low-budget future cop thriller with more muscles than logic. But watch the final cut, and something feels hollow. Our heroes reference a data breach, then leap directly to the climax. There's no hacker, no infiltration sequence, no face to the unseen ghost who apparently died off-screen and is never mentioned again. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed the actor playing the hacker had completed 3 days of shooting. He even appeared briefly in early trailers, peering over glowing monitors. Then came the reshoots, and allegedly, a falling out with the director. Rumors swirled, creative clashes, unconvincing performance, or worse, his scenes slowed the pacing. Whatever the reason, the character was sliced from the narrative with surgical precision. But what they couldn't cut were the holes. Lines referencing his role remained. A sudden leap in the story progression hinted at something missing. For sharp-eyed viewers, it was a ghost in the machine. And in an action film built on explosions and brute force, it was strange to feel haunted by the absence of a man who never got to make his move. But Firepower isn't the only film where someone vanished without warning. Fact 2. Maximum Breakout, 1991. She was fast, tough, armed. The trailer called her a cop with a code. For the first 30 minutes of Maximum Breakout, Officer Ramirez was part of every key scene, trading barbs with the lead, uncovering clues, even saving a hostage. She was clearly set up as the emotional counterbalance to the film's stoic ex-mercenary protagonist. And then, she disappears. No death scene, no goodbye. She's in a warehouse gunfight, and after a hard cut, she's gone. Every mention of her stops cold. Another officer is introduced near the end as if nothing's missing. Fan forums buzzed for years. Bootleg VHS copies of early cuts reportedly showed her in the finale, helping disarm a bomb. One even claimed she was supposed to turn traitor. But in the final version released to video, her arc was erased, and all we're left with is a shadow of what might have been. Some speculated the studio wanted the male lead to remain lone wolf. Others blamed runtime constraints. Whatever the cause, the result was jarring, a setup with no payoff, and a character designed to matter, deleted like she never walked on set. But if you thought that was strange, wait until you hear what The Peacekeeper did to its own marketing team. Fact 3. The Peacekeeper, 1997. How do you sell a political action thriller? Add urgency, a nuclear countdown, and a White House in peril. The Peacekeeper had all that and more, if you believe the posters. One of the film's earliest marketing images shows the president flanked by 2 key aides. One of them, played by a recognizable TV actor at the time, was rumored to be the moral voice in the plot, a White House insider who suspects the conspiracy early and tries to warn the president. His name appeared in press kits. He even got quoted in early reviews, but not in the movie. The theatrical release has no such character. No scenes in the Oval Office where warnings go unheeded. No confrontation. It's like the entire subplot was surgically removed, leaving a more streamlined but colder narrative. Insiders say test screenings found the politics too slow. The studio wanted more action, less talk. So the character, and with him, a full layer of ethical tension, vanished from the screen. Oddly, the actor never commented. His IMDb still lists the role, and promotional stills remain. A strange digital fossil of a man who, according to the final cut, never stepped into frame. Sometimes a poster lies. Sometimes the edit buries the truth. And sometimes, a character meant to balance the chaos simply disappears into it. And the next one? His entire military squad vanished despite being featured in the official press kit. Fact 4. White Rush, 1994. Somewhere, there's a press kit that tells a very different story. White Rush was supposed to be a jungle-set survival thriller about mercenaries, betrayal, and a downed shipment of experimental weapons. The promotional material made a big deal about a rogue military unit caught between orders and conscience. And in particular, it mentioned Sergeant Carter, a hardened, decorated soldier meant to embody the moral dilemma of the mission. Only, there's one problem. He's not in the movie. There's no Sergeant Carter, no rogue unit, just two mercenaries, a few nameless grunts, and a jungle that swallows them one by one. It's as if the film had a whole other layer of military intrigue, and then it vanished before release. Digging deeper, fans discovered early production stills featuring an actor in full uniform posing next to the lead during what appeared to be an interrogation scene. A storyboard leak even revealed dialogue where Carter questions the mission's legality. But those scenes? Nowhere to be found. No deleted scenes on the DVD. No director's commentary. No alternate cut. What remains is a skeleton of a film action without context, explosions without meaning, and a press kit that keeps whispering, there was more here. In White Rush, the jungle devours everything, including, it seems, its own cast. Fact 5. Extreme Honor, 2001. By all accounts, Extreme Honor was designed to be a two-pronged villain story. The official synopsis spoke of a shadowy arms dealer and his brutal enforcer, each representing different faces of evil. One, the chess master, the other, the blood-stained hammer. We got the dealer. We never met the enforcer. And that would be fine, except for the fact that he was in the script, the trailer, and the fight choreography breakdowns. Fans who watched the behind-the-scenes B-roll noticed something odd. A tall, scarred man rehearsing brutal hand-to-hand sequences with the lead. One scene involved a stairwell brawl, another a rooftop chase. The choreographer even mentions the enforcer by name. He's like a ghost, just violence and smoke. In the final film, nothing. The dealer dies mid-movie. The climax happens in a warehouse shootout, short, sudden, and strangely lacking a boss fight. The momentum builds, and then ends. Whispers from the set suggest the actor suffered an injury, halting production on his scenes. But that doesn't explain the lack of any reference to his character in the final story. He was wiped dialogue, build-up, consequences. And so Extreme Honor lives up to its name in an unintended way. Honor sacrificed for expedience. And the enforcer? A silent casualty of a film that lost its final punch. In the final film? Nothing. Fact 6. Rough Trigger, 1990. In early drafts of Rough Trigger, the story centered around two bounty hunters, Trigger and his rival-turned-ally, Mikey Chan. They were opposites, one cool, one chaotic. Their dynamic was the heart of the script. A buddy duo trapped in a neo-noir underworld, but open the final version, and Mikey Chan is gone. Trigger is now solo. He talks to himself, makes plans aloud, and fights alone. The pacing feels oddly hollow. Scenes clearly designed for banter are filled with silence or monologue. Reviewers at the time called it emotionally dry, missing a core relationship. Here's what happened. Halfway through production, the studio decided buddy cop dynamics were played out. They ordered rewrites to frame Trigger as a lone wolf. But instead of reshooting everything, they simply edited around Mikey. The results are awkward. In one chase, Trigger yells, "Go left," to no one. In another, he pulls open a car door, and the passenger seat is empty. It's like watching a duet sung by a single voice. Bootleg scripts confirmed Mikey's scenes were meant to provide levity and humanity. Some fans even found production stills of the two actors side by side, laughing between takes. But none of that survived the cutting room floor. Rough Trigger promised a partnership. It delivered a monologue. And Mikey Chan? He might as well have never existed. Fact 7. Code Red Delta 1995. Military thrillers often walk a fine line between chaos and command. In Code Red Delta, the premise was clear. A rogue special ops team goes dark, and a rescue unit is sent to retrieve them only to find themselves hunted. But that rescue team? It was supposed to be led by Captain Reyes, a seasoned war veteran, described in press notes as the moral compass amidst the carnage. He had a full arc, according to early drafts. He questioned orders, formed bonds with younger soldiers, and ultimately sacrificed himself in a selfless final stand. Except, there's no Captain Reyes. In the final film, command leadership is strangely absent. Decisions are made by a nameless corporal. Emotional weight falls flat. And in a pivotal scene where a character looks off screen and says, "We can't leave him behind," it's unclear who they're talking about. Set reports suggest Reyes's actor was cut following creative disputes. A test screening allegedly flagged him as too dominant compared to the main lead. But removing him wasn't just a casting choice, it was narrative surgery. What remained was a plot filled with tactical jargon, but no heart. Code Red Delta wanted to be about loyalty, sacrifice, and internal conflict. Instead, it became a film where the soul of the mission vanished before deployment. And just like that, a captain meant to guide his men was erased from his own war. Fact 8. Velocity Crossfire, 1998. It was the late 90s, and Velocity Crossfire wanted to be cool. Fast cars, neon shootouts, a synthwave soundtrack. The story: an ex-racer forced into smuggling arms for a black market syndicate. The trailer promised betrayal from every side. But one of those sides, the most interesting one, was missing when the film hit VHS shelves. Fans noticed it immediately. A mysterious biker in red leathers, shown in promo shots and teaser footage, clearly involved in the chase sequences. Rumored to be a former flame-turned bounty hunter, she was meant to complicate the lead's choices, part enemy, part ally. But in the movie, she never appears. The chase sequences are edited tighter. One explosion scene is cut mid-frame. The biker is gone. The red leathers are gone. The subplot, erased. Post-release interviews hinted at insurance issues with stunt coordination. But the film never acknowledged the missing character, nor offered any replacement for her emotional weight. What's left is a stylish but cold film. Fast-paced, but hollow. One without stakes. Without that second heartbeat chasing just behind the protagonist. And in a film about speed and pressure, her absence is a sudden dead stop. But while some disappear before the credits, our next character was wiped after the test audience met him face to face. Fact 9. Terminal Justice, 1996. Sometimes, you see a ghost before it vanishes. Terminal Justice premiered its test screening with a full cast, and audience members clearly remember Agent Mallory, a federal interrogator assigned to control the rogue AI subject at the heart of the plot. He was intense, sarcastic, and grounded the sci-fi with hard realism. He also had some of the film's best lines that made it into early trailers. But when the theatrical version launched 3 months later, Mallory was gone. Not killed, not reassigned, just gone. All his scenes were removed. His dialogue redistributed to weaker secondary roles. The tension he brought the human bureaucracy versus artificial rage disappeared. Why? Theories vary. One says the studio wanted to speed things up, Mallory slowed the pacing. Another suggests internal politics. The lead actor didn't want to be overshadowed. A third says it tested poorly with younger audiences who found him too talky. Regardless, Terminal Justice lost its anchor. What remained was technobabble and endless chase scenes, missing the very character who was meant to question it all. And just like that, Mallory became a phantom, shown in ads, remembered by a handful, but forever absent from the final cut. Fact 10. Crimson Eden 2000. At first glance, Crimson Eden is just another dystopian shoot-'em-up. Rebels versus a technocratic regime, concrete hallways, red lighting, endless gunfire. But early in development, the film was marketed as something more cerebral, a clash of ideologies, not just bullets. That nuance was supposed to come from Dr. Hale, a bioethics expert working inside the regime, leaking information to the rebels through cryptic transmissions. She was meant to appear in holograms, voiceovers, and eventually in person for a key twist. But in the released version, the rebels seem to magically know everything. There's no source, no holograms, no Hale. Yet, on the DVD menu, her face lingers behind static. Her name is still in the subtitles of corrupted voice lines. And the official script, leaked years later, confirms her as a central figure ultimately killed by her own side to maintain secrecy. What happened? Speculation points to a producer shakeup. One executive felt the role complicated the action and wanted to let the bullet speak. So Hale was cut not just from screen time, but from the logic of the story itself. The rebels fight smarter than they should. The regime reacts faster than it makes sense. The world of Crimson Eden feels thinner than intended because the person holding its secret thread was ripped away. And sometimes, removing one character can unravel everything. Fact 11. Zero Count. 1992. Sometimes the title says it all. And sometimes, removing one character can unravel everything. Dino was never meant to fight. He just sat ringside, sharpening blades, reciting old fighter codes. He was the ghost of the gym, the one who had seen it all and forgotten nothing. The script called him a myth that breathes. But when the film was released, Dino wasn't there. What remained were fragments. The protagonist mutters things to no one. A locker with Dino scratched into it. A lingering shot of an empty stool at every match. These weren't oversights, they were residuals. Traces of a character removed late in post-production, but not thoroughly erased. Some say the actor's scenes were lost due to a storage fire. Others claim the director decided to let the ghost stay a ghost and cut him deliberately to make the film more cryptic. Whatever the truth, the result is a haunting tone, like the film is grieving someone the audience never met. And in a sport about impact, Zero Count lands its hardest hit, in the form of a man who no longer exists. Fact 12. Operation Swordline. 1989. It was meant to be a war movie with sole Operation Swordline followed a band of misfit soldiers as they escorted a wounded diplomat across enemy territory. Early screenings described it as The Dirty Dozen meets Saving Private Ryan, years before either comparison became cliché. But something's missing from the final product. Specifically, Private Anders, the youngest of the squad, whose arc was described in press notes as a boy forced into a man's war. He had lines in the trailer, a confrontation scene with the squad leader, a dramatic death in a minefield. But in the version that aired on TV syndication and later on VHS, Anders is reduced to a background face, no dialogue, no death, no arc. Industry whispers point to time constraints. The network wanted it under 90 minutes. Anders was cut for length. But here's the twist. His death was supposed to trigger the emotional collapse of the team leader. With him gone, that breakdown scene still in the film feels sudden and unearned. Viewers at the time described it as emotionally confusing, missing a beat. And that's because the beat was a character, removed like a verse from a song. In Operation Swordline, the cost of war is usually counted in bodies, but sometimes it's felt in the silences that shouldn't be there. Fact 13. Heat Zone. 1996. On paper, Heat Zone was a classic two-hander, a seasoned detective and a volatile rookie chasing a serial arsonist through the industrial underbelly of Detroit. The dynamic was sharp, the dialogue tense, but there was supposed to be a third presence, Lieutenant Barris, the precinct's strategic mind and the one pulling political strings behind the scenes. Early posters even showed him flanked between the two leads, a kind of triangulation of law, instinct, and manipulation. Yet when the film hit theaters, Barris was nowhere to be found. His name doesn't appear in credits. His office scenes, rumored to feature long monologues about justice versus legality, were replaced with a single line from a dispatcher. The entire internal pressure subplot was gone. Crew members later revealed that Barris's actor pushed hard for more screen time, too hard. After production wrapped, producers decided to flatten the hierarchy and make the story purely street level. They removed Barris entirely. The problem? His absence is felt everywhere. Why do the leads keep referencing orders we never hear? Who signs off on their risky tactics? Why does a scene end with a character looking off camera as if awaiting a response? that never comes. In Heat Zone, the fire wasn't the only thing consuming evidence. It seems even authority figures can be burned out of existence. Fakt 14. Neon Siege, 1994. Neon Siege was neon noir excess. Assassins in trench coats, synthwave dripping from every frame, and a revenge plot that zigzagged through a cyberpunk cityscape. The antagonist? A corporate warlord. The hero? A mute ex-bodyguard with a violent past. But there was supposed to be a child. Promo art shows the hero walking through rain, holding a child's hand. Behind the scenes, photos leaked years later show scenes filmed in a school, a subway shelter, even a moment where the child hands the protagonist a keycard. No such child exists in the final cut. In fact, several lines now sound strange references to her safety, a cryptic phrase, "She reminds me of everything I lost." These lines remain, despite the fact that no one ever appears to embody that role. The prevailing theory? The child was meant to humanize the hero, offer a reason for redemption. But during post-production, executives worried it softened the tone. "Too sentimental," said one anonymous note from internal emails. The child was erased, but fragments remained. So the mute killer wanders a world with no heart, driven by ghosts. And the audience, unknowingly, chases the echoes of a character they were never meant to forget. In the end, Neon Siege became style over substance by surgically removing its substance. Fact 15. Shadow Protocol, 1998. Government agents, double crosses, silent corridors. Shadow Protocol was a cerebral spy thriller starring a cold operative tracking a mole through a collapsing intelligence agency. The movie was praised for its tension, its pacing, and yet, something was missing. Specifically, the mole. It sounds absurd. But yes, Shadow Protocol was originally built around a face-to-face showdown between the agent and the mole. That mole was cast, filmed, given a name, Derek Vaughn. Promotional materials teased the betrayal. The actor did interviews. But the final cut? Vaughn doesn't exist. The story ends with a voicemail. "We got him," says a disembodied voice. Then credits roll. Why was the mole removed? A leaked memo reveals the director re-edited the film just weeks before release, saying, "The real enemy is the system." He didn't want a person to blame, he wanted ambiguity. So Vaughn was cut. And with him, a final confrontation, a narrative payoff, and an entire dramatic arc. Now the film ends not with resolution, but with a question. One that feels less like mystery and more like a gap. Sometimes the most important character is the one you never got to meet. Bonus fact. Final Directive, 1990. The character who was never cast. Most of the characters in this list were filmed, then erased. But Final Directive features a mystery, even stranger, a key character written, scripted, storyboarded, but never cast. And yet, traces of him still made it into the final cut. The film, a dystopian military drama set after a failed global coup, was centered around General McCrae, a war hero on trial for treason. But the original screenplay, uncovered decades later, reveals an entire second narrative strand. Captain Juno, a whistleblower who uncovered classified tapes and triggered the tribunal. Juno never appears in the film. But in the opening scene, a judge references the anonymous source. In the second act, McCrae looks at a file marked J. And during the climactic speech, he says, "He was right to betray us." No character is there to claim these lines. No actor stands behind the fallout. Just a ghost that the script once gave flesh and voice. Why wasn't Juno cast? Legend has it. The actor dropped out days before shooting, and rather than recast, the director chose to abstract him, turning him into a narrative device. The studio disagreed, but the decision stuck. What remains is a film haunted by an invisible man, a presence without presence, a testimony without a face. Juno may be the only character in cinematic history who was never filmed, yet still lingers in the story, a phantom embedded in dialogue, context, and contradiction. Which of these vanished characters do you wish you'd seen? Do you think these were just studio decisions? Or part of something deeper, something they didn't want us to see? We've shown you ghosts hidden in celluloid, stories with holes too precise to be accidents. But this is just the beginning. Juno may be the only character in cinematic history who was never filmed, yet still lingers in the story, a phantom embedded in dialogue, context, and contradiction. Which of these vanished characters do you wish you'd seen? Do you think these were just studio decisions? Or part of something deeper, something they didn't want us to see?